But this is blood money. It's just no two ways around it. It's blood money.
Longtime sportscaster Bob Costas has something to say on LIV Golf.
This is a Saudi investment firm. This is a wealth fund, maybe as good and as deep pockets as there is in the world. The Saudi Arabia. Did you have hesitancy about going into business with them?
No, not at all, because golf is a force for good. So to me, if golf is good for the world, golf is good for Saudi.
LIV CEO Greg Norman, a former PGA Tour player, spoke with his friend, Fox News' Brian Kilmeade, and offered the golf brings everyone together line.
This is Saudi blood money. We know all we need to know about the royal family and what they have done. It's not just Khashoggi. It's not just the ongoing oppression of women and gays. They're directly or indirectly tied, according to U.S. and British intelligence, to the 9/11 event. It's one thing for the president. Dick Durbin may advise him not to meet with them, but it's one thing to meet as presidents have with Russian leaders over the years, or Nixon goes to China. That's not a stamp of approval, and they're not being paid by them. This is an entirely different thing.
Norman then responded to Costas.
Yeah, look, I'm disappointed people go down that path, quite honestly. Look, if they want to look at it in that prism, then why does the PGA Tour have 23 sponsors within the PGA Tour doing $40+ billion worth of business with Saudi Arabia? Why is it okay for the sponsors? Why is it okay, Brian, that there's a Saudi sponsor in Aramco, the largest sponsor of women's golf in the world?
Let's be clear, it's not okay. However, Norman's stance takes on a different meaning.
This is a clear-cut matter of morality. And it's also different, I might say, than and we've talked about this on the air before, whether the IOC should be in bed or the NBA should be in bed with China. But when the athletes go to China for the Olympics, whether they approve of it being held there or not, they're not in cahoots with the CCP. They're not receiving direct payment from them. And this is exactly what this is. It's sports washing. The Saudis are rich beyond imagination. They're not going to make money on this with all the upfront money. It's not going to be a money-making tour. It's a sports washing event or a sports washing idea. And Mickelson and the others are complicit in it.
To be clear, taking blood money is always wrong. So it doesn't justify people doing business with odious regimes. But what he's doing is he's taking specific money for a specific program of sports washing, which is Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia's effort to buy off Western elites by buying U.S. and international sports franchises in order to distract people from his crimes, including the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, for which there's been no accountability and justice, including the jailing of the women journalists, which is ongoing, the execution of gays, which is ongoing. So it's one thing to do business with a regime that commits atrocities. It's another thing to take a specific project that's meant for a specific sports washing effort and to endorse it. Because what Greg Norman is getting paid for is not just for organizing a golf league. He's getting paid for doing these press conferences, for going out into the world and saying, oh, everyone's doing it. What's the big deal? Everyone's doing it. No big deal. It is a big deal. It's an escalation of the whitewashing of the Saudi atrocities and an escalation of the payment that he's getting to participate.
When you're front and center, as Greg Norman is, promoting this league for your own gains and further advancing their regime, that's when it's problematic. To be clear, should any big American company like Brian Kilmeade said, like Uber and Facebook, be taking MBS's money? The answer is unequivocally no, absolutely not. Should Hollywood be in business with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia? Most definitely they should not. However, post-Khashoggi, many companies have resumed discussions and taken in investments.
For Greg Norman, who's saying there's nothing to see here and everything's fine and this is going to be good for Saudi Arabia, it's not good for Saudi Arabia. It's just good for one Saudi Arabian, Mohammed bin Salman. For the rest of the Saudi Arabians who are suffering under the crimes of Mohammed bin Salman, it's very bad. It makes their situation worse.
Since the Golf League was formed and launched, they had their first tournament, which took place in London, England. Recently, Brooks Koepka, currently ranked 84th in the FedEx Cup rankings, defected from the PGA Tour to join LIV. One writer for USA Today, Eamon Lynch, put it in perspective on why many, like Koepka, are flocking to the upstart league. Beyond now having to labor at the beck and call of people he dislikes, with good reason to be fair, the decision to join LIV represents a humiliation for Koepka, though he will be loath to admit it. He He has always fancied himself more an athlete than a golfer, but this is an admission that he's neither. That he's just an entertainer doomed to play exhibitions against the washed-up veterans and no-name youngsters that he's long considered unfit to sniff his jockstrap. There's a reason behind the tacit acknowledgement. Koepka's body has been degrading for years, and a nagging injury has him perilously close to surgery and a lengthy layoff. He might have committed to the Saudis, but they will be lucky to see him fulfill it. There is a trend apparent among the players going to LIV beyond the obvious thirst for money. In almost every case, their long-term ability to consistently compete against the world's best on the PGA Tour is questionable, be it on the basis of longevity, decrepitude, diminishing skill, or apathy. They are stars emeritus, their best rendered roadkill some miles back by younger, healthier, and more powerful competition. Any suggestion that he belongs among their ranks will wound a prideful man like Koepka, but it's true. An open letter on Wednesday from 9/11 family members read as follows via the New York Daily News. Thank you for reminding the people of the world that we should never forget, read the missive from nearly 2,500 relatives of those killed in the September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks. Thank you for standing up for decency. Thank you for resisting the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia's efforts to cleanse its reputation by buying off pro athletes. The Saudis have blood on their hands, said Brett Eagleson, whose father Bruce was killed in the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. No amount of sports washing should ever clean that up for them. To those of you who have chosen what is right over blood money from a corrupt, destructive sports entity and its Saudi backers, please continue to stand strong. You inspire hope and conviction that our long journey to accountability and justice is within reach.
If Aaron Judge, just as an example, Aaron Judge might be the MVP of the American League this year, having a great year for the Yankees. He can be a free agent. If he goes and signs someplace else, there'll be people who will grumble, well, how much money is enough? But there's nothing inherently immoral for playing for the San Francisco Giants or whatever team he chooses as opposed to the New York Yankees. Guaranteed money, $200 million for Phil Mickelson. Even if he never wins a tournament, the prize money's on top of that. $115 million, as I understand it, for Dustin Johnson. But what's the price for your soul? What's the price for integrity?
What he's trying to convince us of is that if the Saudis are allowed to buy up golf, then it'll be good that it'll have a reforming effect on Saudi Arabia, which is the exact opposite of what we're seeing. And just look at what's going on in Saudi Arabia. The abuses are going up. The repression is going up. Every indication shows that the richer and more powerful MBS gets, and the more he's able to purchase elites, to purchase Westerners, to put them in his pocket and then deploy them to push his propaganda, it actually makes it much harder for the activists, the dissidents, and the suffering. And that's the real problem with what Greg Norman is saying here. By pointing at the PGA and pointing at this guy and that guy, he's distracting us from the suffering of the victims. Those people are not taking Saudi money. Those people are being crushed by the Saudi regime, and their voices are the ones that need to be elevated, not the voices of Greg Norman and Phil Mickelson, because they're the ones who are actually undergoing great suffering at the hands of Mohammed bin Salman and the rest of his thuggish regime.